Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, distinguished guests, and folks of all stripes, and especially all the little doggies, all rise for Space Cadet Sports. Houston, we have Paul Salazar Jr.
Hey y'all, welcome back to the Space Cadet Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Salazar Jr. I am a screenwriter, comedian, improviser, kind of goofball. I am here live from the studio in Los Angeles, but I'm a lifelong Houstonian. I was a kid running around the Astrodome bases. I've been a lifelong Houston Astros fan, and I love talking Astros baseball. As I mentioned, I'm here in studio in Los Angeles on a beautiful day in Los Angeles here, where I am just soaking in the wonder of the Astros no-hitter from yesterday. I am joined by my co-host, Carla the dog. She is... Actually, she's not seated right now. She is not seated and ready to be on mic. She's chasing a fly around the studio. I'm grateful for that. We do need pest control. That is part of her job. So I'm grateful that she's, carrying a little bit of the load this episode. But yeah, this episode, I definitely just want to get into no-hitters. This is a special episode of the Space Cadet podcast. One day I'll learn how to say the name of this show. I promise you that one day I will be focused when I get on mic. This is still a new thing for me. I'm learning podcasting. I'm definitely learning how to be on camera when podcasting, which is a new thing for me. I've done hosting before, but hosting something kind of live is a whole other beast. I'm grateful for my improv training and my comedy training, but mad respect to podcasters and people that do sports shows. It is a lot more difficult than you think it is. So pardon the dust, pardon my bumps as I'm going through this learning curve here. I definitely just want to build a community of Astros fans and people that want to talk Astros baseball. So thanks for being here. If you haven't already subscribed to the Space Cadet show, the Space Cadet podcast, please subscribe and consider being a founding member. Consider subscribing with some kind of financial help here. We definitely could use it, and we appreciate the help. But let's talk about these no-hitters. So pardon helicopters for sure. We are in Los Angeles. There are going to be some helicopter sounds. I like that. Just kind of a cacophony of noises. I don't want this to be a standard sports blog. I don't want this to be a standard sports podcast. So, I invite the chaos. I invite it all in. But yeah, so I was looking up there's been so much. I did a kind of reactionary podcast last night, but I wanted to talk to the no-hitter a little bit more specifically. But we do live in a golden era of Astros baseball. That's for sure with Astros fans. I know there's been some complaining towards the end of last season, at the beginning of this season, but we still have a great team. We are in the golden era. I know it's World Series or bust most years, but winning a World Series is a tough thing. We're getting so close, but we are in this golden era, and something that was reported is the Astros are responsible for 4 of the last 7 no-hitters, and that is extremely impressive. That's not only the only impressive stat the Houston Astros have around no-hitters right now. The Astros have 17 no-hitters actually, and that's going to be playoffs included for those of you who want to know where all the games are coming from. And that's going to be the most no-hitters thrown by any club since the Astros first came into the league in 1962. The next most by any club in that span is going to be 13 from the Los Angeles Dodgers here in LA. So you think about that in this kind of era of baseball, like we have been pretty good at getting those no hitters. Oh, Carla has something to say. I hope it's not a delivery, because then it's going to be a tough edit. It's okay, Carla. I mean, she's just excited about the no hitters. She's giving us a big woo for the Houston Astros right now. But that's not it. The Astros also became the 7th franchise in Major League Baseball history to have at least 3 consecutive seasons with a no-hitter, according to Elias Sports Bureau. The Giants, the Dodgers each did so in 4 straight years, while the Astros tied the Angels, Orioles, Red Sox, and Cleveland by doing it thrice consecutively. And yeah, Carla's just really excited about that. She's like, I think we can get that next one. And yeah, we'll go over our last no hitters here. But we did have a couple no hitters in 2019. Took a little break there and had some more no hitters in 2020. And I do think that COVID season was a tough one for a lot of players on a lot of their bodies. I do think 2020 and 2021, were a tougher season for a lot of pitchers. And, baseball players can sometimes get into a routine, and that kind of consistency of a routine is something that helps them play baseball a little bit better, because it's just a psychological game. That's why everybody has their kind of routines when they step up to the plate or before they throw a pitch. It's kind of like a mantra. It's kind of a centering thing. Baseball can be very heady. So, when 2020 happened, it kind of threw all these players for a loop, because their routines, whether it's just their workout routine, was interrupted because, they had to be home more, or their routine because they had to literally take months off of baseball or just do things differently or play in a bubble. All these things that got thrown at them, that got thrown at all of us in 2020, that threw our lives for a loop, threw their lives for a loop professionally as players. So I think pitching, definitely took a step back. And I think also in the subsequent years with all these rule changes, there's also been rule changes in favor of offense, because honestly, baseball needs to grow its game. There's not a lot of young viewers right now, because a lot of the fans are old and traditional. They want things the old way and a little slower. And I can be a traditional fan at times, but at other times we need to progress the game forward and invite other people in. So they're trying to get offense going, with these rule changes. And some of them I like, some of them I don't like. But this isn't that podcast. But like we definitely took some years off of stellar pitching there, in the sense of the stat, at least of a no-hitter, of a no-no. But yeah, let's kind of look at that. I have a couple more stats here I want to throw at you here. And one of them is that Joe Espada, like I said yesterday in the podcast, Joe Espada kind of got swept under the rug there a little bit, but I'm sure he's happy to not have all the attention on him. He doesn't seem like one of those medium baseball managers that's trying to brand himself a little bit. He looks like he's trying to figure the job out right now. So I'm sure he's happy for a little less attention. But Joe Espada became the first skipper to have his first managerial win, or first managerial win of any club, coming as part of a no-hitter, according to Elias. And yeah, a little bit on Ronald Blanco. That guy was just nails. I know, and I said that we needed to get a good outing out of him, but I never would have anticipated it would have been this great of an outing. I'm glad to see him have some success. But prior to this, his career high was 99 pitches, and he'd only gone deep into the game maybe 2 times. And that's just to the 6th inning, were his longest outings. But he really did have a great game. I think that changeup was super effective. I also think, like I mentioned, there weren't a lot of hitters on the team that had a lot of experience with Ronald Blanco. So I feel like that helped him out too. The lack of a scouting report on the changeup, the lack of these players experiencing Ronald Blanco throwing to them and seeing his pitch shapes helped him a lot. But, this is something for him to grow off of. Hopefully he'll have more no-hitters in his career. That would be amazing. I'm not trying to put a ceiling on Ronald Blanco, because I don't know enough about him to say that. But, it is something that he can grow off of and continue to grow on. He is the 10th Dominican pitcher to throw a no-no, and also on Ronald Blanco, he just had a daughter. Before the exhibition game where he started pitching, I believe he pitched for the Astros against the Sugarland Space Cowboys, but for the Sugarland Space Cowboys Astros game that he pitched, that was the day of his daughter's birth. So this is a new father. He's got that new dad strength. Maybe that's part of the key to throwing a no-hitter. But now this segment of the podcast, I want to move on. We're going to talk specifically about those. We're going to relive some of those Astros games of Astros past. So for those of you who are new bandwagon fans, this is kind of like your casual fan corner segment, if you will. Or this is actually it's a deep dive, if you will. You're learning more things about the Astros here. But if you're a bit more casual fan, you've just stepped in, as the golden era is happening here, and you don't know a lot about the history of the Astros or this particular era, if you're a new fan, we're going to go over some of these games for you. If you're an old fan, we're just going to relive them for a little bit so you can smile and think fondly of those memories. I know I do. But yeah, of those last no-hitters that we were talking about, we'll go back to August 2019, kind of talking about the golden era. We'll talk golden era games. In August of 2019, Aaron Sanchez was just acquired from the Blue Jays. And he was definitely a prospect pitcher that we hoped would work out a little bit more than he did. It's definitely sad, but it's nice to go back and see him pitch so well in this game. He was pitching against Seattle at home. Sorry, I just saw the Blue Jays in my notes. I was like, he didn't pitch against the Blue Jays, but he was traded from the Blue Jays. That's where my confusion was. But he was pitching against Seattle at home. In his Houston debut, was the first time he put on the Houston Astros jersey. He pitched a great 6 innings, and then Will Harris came in the 7th, which it was fun to see Will Harris again in 2019. He had a really great season. As a relief pitcher, he had a really, well, at least I'm trying to recall now. It's so long ago now. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's 5 years ago now. Woof. Just zoom in on my face as I age like that Matt Damon meme. So anyway, Will Harris in that season that I don't quite remember too well, but he was nails in the postseason. I do recall that, especially, when we couldn't get it done against the Nationals that year in the World Series, but I had a lot of faith in him until it just kind of fell apart there. And he was in the 7th and 8th. We had Joe Biagnani. Oh, man. I feel bad. This is, once again, I'm not trying to be disrespectful. Biagini, I believe, is what it is. And he came in the 8th. And he was kind of a journeyman pitcher. He did a good job in this outing. And then one of my favorite journeyman pitchers, he closed out the 9th. It was Chris Davinsky, Devo. I really, maybe it's just a Devo reference and the fans of his wearing the Devo hats, but I really loved Chris Davinsky when he played for us. And that was a game that Martin Maldonado catched. Just throwing that out there. I know there's some Maldonado haters and Astros in the fan circles right now. I still don't understand why. We can get into the subject of why playoff and World Series ready teams don't need offense from a catcher. They should be, not that they don't need any offense whatsoever, but that's like the role where you get a defensive minded player. And generally, if you have a Yadier Diaz that can give you both, obviously you go for that. But last season was a season of just Martin Maldonado being a made man. He wasn't going to lose his job to Yadier Diaz in that season before Yadier Diaz was ready to fully be responsible for calling the games for whole pitching staff. But I said we won't get into it. We got into it a little bit. But we're moving on. September 2019, Justin Verlander pitched against Toronto. This is going to be in Toronto. Sorry again, Toronto Blue Jays fans. You're really friendly. You're so friendly and so nice. Blue Jays fans have always been great, but they definitely have been nice to the Astros pitchers. In this game, JV was just nails. He was vintage JV. In this game, I gave Maldi a shout out, but in this game, Robinson Chirinos actually was the catcher for this one. And just going back and just seeing this team, it brought back a lot of good memories. It was a good, complete game. Justin Verlander pitched in 2019. And then, like I said earlier, the pandemic happened, 2020 happened, everybody's routine got thrown for a rut. So there weren't any no-hitters for the Astros for a couple of years. And then in June 2022, Christian Javier went into the New York Yankees house and he completely blew them away. He pitched for 7 innings. And yeah, that I remember watching that game, and I'm sorry, New York Yankees fans, but that I absolutely loved that game. It was so good to cheer for Christian Javier in that moment and in New York. New York definitely does not like the Houston Astros. So for Christian Javier to go in there and just be as solid as he was and give that kind of just kind of nonplussed, kind of like shrugging and just like not letting anything worry him kind of performance was great. El Reptil, I love Christian Javier. In that game, Christian Javier pitched 7 innings, and then Hector Neris came in and Presley closed it out. And yeah, I'm glad that we have Josh Hader here, but going back and seeing Hector Neris, it really reminded me of how great he was for the Astros for those seasons. So if for nothing else, just a shout out to Hector Neris. He really was a solid bridge to your closer kind of setup guy that we needed. Maldi also caught that game, and that was going to be our second combined no-hitter in Yankee Stadium. For those Astros fans that are old as me, you remember the Roy Oswalt one, where we used every single pitcher on the roster to throw a no-hitter in the old Yankee Stadium. That was amazing. That's back in, I believe, when we were wearing pinstripes too. I don't know what that was about when we were wearing those pinstripes. Not that I completely hate them. It's funny. It's kind of like the Houston Rockets, kind of pinstripe, cartoon rocket jerseys. It's like I used to think they were so corny and so cheesy, but now I go back and I'm like, I kind of like how silly they were. But, what were we doing? It's like kind of like you go back and you see pictures of you when you were in middle school and you like had emo hair or something, or you like were wearing a band shirt that, you're just trying too hard. That's what those pinstripe jerseys remind me of. But moving on, that was June 2022. Just a little bit later that season, November 2022, Christian Javier is back. He's back once again. He is in Minute Maid Park. He's in Philadelphia, and this time it is in a regular season game. This is for the World Series. So for those of you who are like, why are you including the playoffs? I think a no-hitter in Game 6 and I don't off the top of my head I don't remember now, but a no hitter in the World Series, should be included. He pitched 6 amazing innings in Philadelphia in one of the craziest environments. For the last couple seasons, I really loved every single fan base being like, when Houston comes to our house, they're not going to be ready for it. They're not going to be ready for the noise, whether it's Seattle, whether it's Texas, whether it's Philadelphia, whether it's New York, all these teams saying that, get ready, Houston. We're going to boo you like you've never been booed before. But I will have to say, Philly gets a little respect on their name. That was a raucous environment. It was kind of crazy. So to see Christian Javier, El Reptil, settle in there was exactly what we needed for that World Series. Also, I do think it's funny talking about, all other fans talking about how they're going to boo us and how we got to get ready. I thought it was really cute when Mookie Betts said at the beginning of this season that every team that plays the Dodgers, this is their World Series. And I do understand the Dodgers are going to be a great team. Everybody that plays the Dodgers is going to want to do excellent and show up and play their A game. On that, I completely agree. I just think it's funny that everybody rallied behind it and thought that was a cool thing to say, because that's like making your own nickname, going out there and saying that people get ready, we're the World Series game for you this season. That's like saying, hey, call me Killer. That's putting some coolness on you, Mookie. Like, Seattle said that when Houston came to their house in the regular season, it was their World Series. We didn't say that as Astros fans or as Astros players. They said us coming to play them in the regular season is their World Series. So I think, at least for me, from where I'm sitting, the fact that your opponent would call it that as opposed to you just trying to put some bragging rights on your team, that's a little more impressive. But anyway, moving on. In the 6 innings, Christian Javier did great. Then we had Brian Abreu, and believe it or not, Rafael Montero came in the 8th in that game, and he did great, obviously. Didn't give up a hit, and Presley closed it out. Now, in that was one where Christian Vasquez was catching, and this was during the time when Maldonado's already starting to get those rumbles of who should be starting. We should not have Maldi out there. So this was great for Vasquez to show that he can call a great game too, and it's not just Maldonado. It is the whole pitching team, the whole team's philosophy and the whole game plan. Then later on in the next season, August of 2023, Framber Valdez against the Cleveland Guardians at Minute Maid Park. This was during Framber Valdez's great pitching season. I remember I went into Houston. I caught one game that he pitched at Minute Maid. I want to say he maybe had 8 to 10 strikeouts in that game, and it was just amazing. He was so focused and so just in the zone that season. We're hoping that we get back. I think I'm confusing my seasons now because that was last year. But yeah, no, I'm thinking about the year before. But yeah, this was just, it was a throwback to that kind of a performance when he was having his quality start run, where he was just focused, he was locked in. And it's one of the things we've been saying about Valdez this season. We want the locked in Valdez. We want him to kind of work through these issues that can sometimes be a little mental and kind of lock in. And Maldonado was a guy that could get him locked in, but he's going to have to find a way to make other relationships, either with Diaz or with himself, to focus up on the mound this season. But that was a complete game. He was completely locked in. Maldonado was there with him, and he faced the minimum batters in that game, which is an impressive thing to do. I believe I watched this game just on my iPad at home in August. But I remember being on the edge of my seat, seeing if he would actually get through the game with facing the minimal amount of batters. I thought I had a stat up about how many times that's happened in the history of baseball. But, that's just such an impressive thing to do. And then obviously the last no-hitter that we can talk about is in 2024. Just happened yesterday. April Fools, no fooling. Ronel Blanco against Toronto in the juice box, trying to exercise some of those home demons. He threw a complete game, and Yaner Diaz, our future baby Yaner, was a catcher. He threw 9 innings. He had 2 walks and 7 strikeouts. And, one thing I noticed in all of these games, and besides just tracking, who was pitching and who was catching, all the silly things that I'm telling you, is, you go back and you watch these highlights, and towards the end of the game, every pitcher has needed the defense to pick them up and make some good plays. And last night it was Dubon. There was a great play by Abreu at the very end to just, really solidify to go the extra mile and stay focused on defense, stay sharp, be ready for a hard grounder, be ready to hustle to get to a fly ball that might normally be out of your range. The Astros defense picks up their pitchers, and that's something we want to see from these guys this season. The first series against the Yankees, we've had some unlucky defensive woes. I don't think that's who this team is. This team is not going to be making a lot of errors, but errors happen. And that really is a thing that separates the good teams from the great teams. Good teams, errors happen. You kind of like go into a rut for a week. Maybe you have some defensive issues and you have to take a little bit of time to focus on them. Great teams are like, what? We bobbled the ball. What? It was a bad bounce. We're moving on. We're going to stay focused. We're not going to be in our head about what we're going to do defensively. We're going to attack the way that we know how to attack, the way that we always have been. And so we're just hoping they have more of that defensive mindset going into this season. And honestly, we hope we're going to need these starting pitchers to get deep into these games, because even, as I've been saying, middle relief has been an issue for the Astros this season. So one way you don't have middle relief issues is you don't have to lean on your middle relief. You can use them in mop-up situations, you could use them in spot situations, but you never have to have a middle reliever in a high leverage situation if you have good offense and you have a great pitcher going deep into the game. That wasn't a problem yesterday. We're hoping to see more of that going forward. We're hoping to see more great performances from the Houston Astros in their golden era. When Houston Astros pitching coach Brett Strom retired, I was really worried a couple seasons ago. I think that was in 2021 now. He developed and helped coach up a lot of these prospects that weren't on anybody's radar. These Christian Javier's, these Framber Valdez, these, Jose Akitis, these guys that would show up and be amazing for us that kind of came out of nowhere. We thought Brett Strom was the main reason. And, he was a great reason, but he also developed other coaches while he was here. And those pitching coaches have done a great job with our staff and has done a great job to approach the game to play up to their strengths. And on top of that, obviously, the idea that Maldonado was such a great catcher and was a huge part in game planning and getting these pitchers focused, that is part of the narrative. However, when we're looking at it, he's not the only catcher who has been able to get these results out of Houston pitchers. And I'm not trying to throw shade on Maldonado's name. I think Maldonado is one of the smartest catchers to play baseball. He knows how to game plan, and he knows how to run the show emotionally. Whether it's he's like a field general. He's a guy you need. But me saying that we don't need Maldonado to have a no-hitter is just saying simply that I think the structure is there for our team to have this kind of performance, and they're trying to find types of catchers that can fill that void and be that game manager. Like Robinson Chirinos, he was one of those guys that's been back and forth on the team for years. He's the game manager type of catcher that we liked. Christian Vasquez, obviously, we saw in him that game manager type feel, and he had a little bit more of a bat, which we desperately needed at that time. Baker didn't put him in many situations to hit, but we didn't need to. We obviously had success without having to rely too much on Vasquez's bat. But now we have Yainer Diaz. Yainer Diaz looks like he's really learned under the tutelage of Martin Maldonado. It looks like he's ready to pick up exactly where Maldonado left off when it comes to game planning, when it comes to pitch framing, when it comes to pop time, all of those defensive numbers, all of those metrics. Yainer Diaz looks great, and on top of that, the guy can bat. So, obviously, when I'm saying that championship teams, it's a bad thing for championship teams to need their catcher to have a lot of offense. By that I mean that generally the offense comes from a lot of different places on your squad. There are 7 other guys out there. Generally you're looking at corner outfield, corner infield for a lot of that power. In the middle of the field, you're looking for a lot of that contact traditionally. Now, I'm not saying that's the only way to develop a baseball team. I'm just saying traditionally, it's not traditional for teams to go searching for a big catcher bat in season to go to the World Series. That's kind of like a Hail Mary thing. You might have developed a prospect that has a huge bat and is a catcher, but that's not traditional. And if you do have a guy with a great bat and good speed, sometimes you want to even move him out of catcher. So, Yainer Diaz is a catcher. They're not going to move him out of that anytime soon. I think if they would have done it, they would have tried to develop him into a first baseman. Previously, when Yuli Gurriel was aging, and as we got Jose Abreu on the team last season, and he was going through some offensive troubles, we didn't use Yainer as a first baseman maybe 2 times or so. So I'm not projecting that we change his position. I'm just saying that sometimes some teams can do that. With all that being said, and with all the rambling and rantings I have done, I just want to thank everybody for listening to the podcast today. Thank you for being part of the Space Cadet Sports blog. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe. Please give us a like. If you already have done all that, then give us a share. Give me a comment. A lot of these blogs and a lot of these things, they really rely on user engagement. So if you are hearing this, if you have made it this far into the podcast, please do me a solid and engage with it a little bit. Drop me a comment. You can even tell me personally. You can drop me a DM. Find me on social media at Paul Salazar JR on all social media platforms. I'm working on getting a Space Cadet Sports account working on some platforms as well, where you can directly go there. Right now, there hasn't been overwhelming influx of comments or anything, but just if that's more helpful for you as a consumer, reach out to me. Let me know what you think. Let me know what we can do for you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being an Astros fan. Go Astros. Hope you have a good day. And vamos Astros.